or
Welcome back to Sunday Night Spookies, the podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious and the spooky unknown. My name is Lex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is episode 14, Haunted Dolls.
So we want to start this episode out with a big disclaimer. We also are going to put disclaimers on our social media when we post some pictures, because we post pictures every single week of the topics that we talk about. So this episode is going to be fun. I think it was fun to research. We do talk about haunted dolls. And while most of the time it's okay to talk about, there have been reports of people experiencing some negative side effects from talking about these dolls or seeing pictures or videos of these dolls. We explain all of it later in the podcast, but if you are particularly sensitive to any of this paranormal stuff, particularly possessed, cursed, haunted items, we suggest you skip this week. When we post our pictures, we'll have multiple disclaimer cover pages before the actual photos of the dolls. If you are interested in seeing them, again, people have been known to have pretty grim side effects with seeing these dolls, talking about these dolls. So you have been warned.
By continuing to listen and by looking at the pictures on our Instagram, you accept any and all fate.
And we are not responsible for anything.
Our hands are clean.
Yeah. We've put up disclaimers if you decide to listen to this episode and something bad happens to you, or you feel nauseous after looking at these pictures, or something weird happens. We are not responsible.
So, first and foremost, we would like to ask the permission of, and also thank, Robert the Doll and Peggy the Doll for letting us discuss them on the podcast.
It's for educational purposes.
We will do so with all of the respect in the world.
Yeah.
And
Here we go.
Excited to share their stories. It's fine. So if you didn't see our Instagram story and Facebook story, you wouldn't know about the malfunction that we just encountered.
Yeah, like 30 seconds ago.
So we got probably, 6 minutes into the recording, and we had to stop it and go backward and reword something. But when I went to go back and delete some things, I found out that the recording completely stopped working right after our initial disclaimer and paying respects to Peggy and Robert, the dolls.
Yep. And we've never had a problem with our recording equipment, ever.
The microphone completely disconnected from the computer.
Yeah.
It was there's nothing plugged in, even though it's very much plugged into my computer.
Yeah, and it's been plugged in for the last hour.
So, as we continue, we would like to reiterate to Robert the Doll and Peggy the Doll that we respect them very, very much.
Yes.
And mean absolutely no harm by recording this episode.
We are just educating the people of your wonders. Mm-hmm. Honestly.
Yeah, that's it.
Very fascinating.
So, I guess, hopefully...
Take two.
Hopefully, without much further ado...
Here we go.
Let's do some take two. We are going to start with Robert the Doll. Robert the Doll is considered to be the most haunted doll in America. He is a one-of-a-kind handmade doll made by the Steiff Company, I think I'm saying that right, of Germany. He was created in the very, very early 1900s. He is 40 inches tall and is stuffed with a wooden wool known as Excelsior, which I feel like I've heard that word before, but not as a name of a wooden wool.
Neither have I. I've never heard that word.
His face is not only vaguely human, it contains a little nub-like nose that looks like pinholes. He's covered in brown nicks that resemble scars, and his eyes are beady and black. His face also contains a very malevolent smirk. Just kind of constant...
Just a small smirk.
Upturned mouth. Robert is dressed in a sailor suit, and he used to have painted features that were similar to a jester.
I didn't know that.
Me either. There's not really anything left on his face now. Yeah. He holds his own toy, a dog with popping eyes and a tongue hanging out of its mouth.
Cute little dog.
His size is somewhat peculiar for a doll because he's tall. 40 inches tall. That's as tall as a small child.
Yeah, I remember growing up, I had a quote-unquote lifelike doll, and it was about the same height, and it was a large doll.
Robert the Doll actually belonged to a little boy named Robert Eugene Otto, and there's some speculation over how Eugene Otto, like he liked to be called, how he was given the toy. They don't know. In some situations, they say his mother gave it to him, right?
Yeah, there's an episode of Zach Bagans' like Deadly Possessions or something like that, that we had watched, and the now caretaker of Robert had explained that his mother gave it to him at 4 years old on his 4th birthday. But I've never heard that. I heard the other version, which you read more. Yeah,
I read in quite a few stories that Eugene Otto was given Robert the Doll from a servant of the household. And there's a little bit more to that, but I'll share that later.
Yeah, well, in any video or story I've read or heard about Robert the Doll, that's always what I heard.
Yeah. So the boy went by Gene or Eugene, and his doll took his first name, Robert. The home where Eugene Otto lived was built between 1890 and 1898, and in this house is where Eugene and his doll, Robert, would form their unbreakable bond. And I say unbreakable because
legitimately unbreakable.
Yes. Seemingly an ordinary cloth doll, Robert kind of dismantled that very quickly. He was constantly found in the middle of strange and terrifying events in the Otto household. When Eugene was 10 years old, he woke up to find Robert sitting on the end of his bed, staring at him. His mother was awoken by his screams, and when she arrived at the door, the room was locked.
Oh.
Yes. When she finally broke down the door, she found Eugene on his bed, curled up into a ball, but the rest of the room was in shambles. There was furniture overturned and thrown about the room, and Robert was sitting quietly at the end of the bed still.
Okay.
But that's not the only thing that happened. A lot of times, his parents would find mutilated toys.
Oh.
All over Eugene's bedroom. Just
and he
broken
would blame
toys everywhere.
On the doll.
And he always said, Robert did it. But his parents didn't believe him because, it's a doll.
Most people don't think dolls can do that.
Right.
Not discrediting anything.
Right. So the big question here is, how did a child's plaything tear apart a bedroom? Or do really anything at all?
Yeah.
It's a toy. But it didn't stop there. So Gene's parents report hearing him talking to Robert the Doll, which that's normal behavior for children.
Yeah, I used to talk to dolls all the time.
Right.
Shit, I talk to my walls. So
It's
you know
fine.
what?
I talk to myself.
Same.
It's fine. So that's a normal occurrence. But the terrifying part is that Robert spoke back in a different voice.
Oh, okay. Like the doll Robert, or like the child would mimic?
They said it was a completely different voice.
Okay. Interesting.
So they realized something else was going on.
Must be.
Something a little bit more sinister. Gene's parents report seeing the doll talk. And watching his expressions change in front of their eyes.
I don't like that.
No. They would hear him giggle, come around corners to see him running up the stairs, or even see him in a window, like standing up in a window. So after Gene's parents died, he moved back to his parents' home with his wife, Anne, and he felt that Robert needed a room of his own.
Oh.
So he fashioned him one on the side of the house that overlooked the street.
So he needed a view.
Gene's wife, Anne, couldn't put her finger on it, but she felt really uneasy about Robert the Doll in the house. She asked Gene to lock the doll in the attic where he could be tempted to do no harm. So the wife is already... she's like, there's something happening here. This guy is not good. So Gene agreed, but Robert was very unhappy with that decision.
Well, yeah, no one wants to be locked in an attic.
No. So time goes by, and they start hearing footsteps in the attic, along with very devilish giggling.
Perfect.
That's the last thing I want to hear from my attic.
From my attic?
Giggling.
Yeah. I've had raccoons in my attic. Not a joke. They've actually been there.
Right.
I've never heard giggling from my attic.
No.
I've heard a lot of other things coming from the attic.
Little footsteps here and
Little
there.
footsteps, yeah.
I think I would die if I heard giggling in your attic, but it's fine.
Yeah, I would move. Bye.
Moving.
Yeah, I don't do that.
The neighborhood children even reported to being taunted by Robert.
What?
Yeah.
Like,
they
through
would,
like windows?
Yeah. They would see him in the upstairs bedroom window while they're walking to school. But Jean was like, no, he's in the attic. There's no way he's in the upstairs bedroom. Like, you can't see him. He's in the attic.
And people don't usually have windows in their attics.
Right. So he immediately was like, I gotta go investigate this. So he goes up to the bedroom that they say he was in, and he's sitting in a rocking chair by the window.
Nope.
But he's supposed to be in the attic.
No.
This happened multiple times, and Jean said he locked him back in the attic each time.
That makes me skin crawl.
Jean Otto died in 1974. A new family moved into his home, and they had a 10-year-old girl.
Oh, no.
She was very excited to find Robert the Doll.
Oh, no.
But it did not last long, because she claimed that he was alive and wanted to hurt her.
Oh, good.
She woke up screaming in the middle of the night repeatedly because Robert had moved around the room. Yeah. So they gave him away.
I think that out of all the paranormal stuff that we've done, I think not just dolls in general, but anything that moves on its own freaks me out the most.
Yeah.
I can't see it. Like, what's moving that? You know, like, I can't see what's moving it. It's one thing to go back and find like an orb in a picture or something moving in a picture,
but seeing something moving in front of your eyes.
Like, if you know that dog bone over there just started rolling across the floor, I'm out of here.
Right.
No.
So a reporter from Solaris Hill, Malcolm Ross, visited Robert, and he said, quote, "It was like a metal bar running down my back. At first, when we walked through the door, the look on his face was like a little boy being punished. It was as if he was asking himself, who are these people in my room and what are they going to do to me?" Malcolm Ross's friends told him Robert's backstory and pointed out the children's furniture. It was at this point Malcolm noticed a change in the doll's expression, as if he was following the conversation. One of the men made a comment about what an old fool Jean Otto must have been, and Robert's expression turned to one of disdain.
Yeah, no.
He says there was some kind of intelligence there. The doll was listening to us. Wild. So you might be wondering, why is Robert the Doll haunted? Or what is causing him to lash out and act in these ways? Many people believe that Robert's malevolence lies within the one who originally gave him to Jean Otto, the servant. It's reported that this woman was mistreated by Jean's parents, the Ottos, and to punish them, it was believed that she cursed the doll with voodoo and black magic. But the question remains, wouldn't the hauntings have ended when the owners died?
Good question. I have no idea.
I don't know. If something's always cursed, then I guess if you curse something, it's just going to be like that.
Right. Well, I'm almost thinking, too, that even after Eugene passed, because he had such a strong connection to this doll, is he with it as well? Like,
could be.
You know what I mean? Like, could it just have accumulated more than one entity or being?
So Robert currently lives at Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. And from there, he continues to taunt and scare people who come to view him, especially those who try to take pictures of him. There are a lot of reports that people's cameras will just stop working when...
Funny, like how our recording equipment just stopped working.
Right. But then when they leave the museum, the camera works again. No problem. So he sits in a glass case, but that doesn't stop him.
Of course not.
He continues to inflict fear and discomfort in everyone who comes in contact with him. And if you watch him carefully, they say that you can see him move or smirk.
Oh.
If you do go to meet Robert, you have to follow 3 very strict rules. First, you must greet and introduce yourself to Robert. Then, if you want to take a photo of him, you have to ask for permission first. And you cannot leave the museum without saying goodbye. Failing to adhere to any of these rules will be taken as disrespect towards Robert, and there will be consequences. The museum has an archive of letters that are written to Robert from people who are begging for forgiveness.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. People who poke fun at Robert or disrespect him in any way are met with great misfortune. And misfortune is light. That's a light word.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as being burned by hot water, missing your flight, but even more than that. It could be...
Great.
You could get a divorce, get in a car accident, break your bones, or even lose your job. Letters arrive daily. I think they said that they would get like 3 to 4 letters every single day.
Oh my gosh.
Which isn't, you're like, oh, that's not that many. But that's
every day?
That's a ton of them. And the letters contain deep apologies for disrespecting Robert. And his caretaker, I don't remember her name now, but she tends to him, takes care of him, makes sure he's tip-top shape. Proper. Yep. And she will read all of the letters and emails to him.
And the caretaker was on the Ghost Adventure Artifact show with Robert the Doll. When Zach was interviewing her, she had said that she's never experienced any negativity or negative effect, anything. So I don't know if you disrespect him, that's what you get. Or if you don't follow all the precautions, that's what you get. Or if he just favors more people or some people other than others. You know what I mean?
I think he probably takes her tending to him as
caring,
maybe companionship or caring. Yeah. And maybe that's why, because she's constantly checking to make sure that he doesn't have holes and he's not like wearing away in a bad way or whatever.
And she was very meticulous with him, like fixing his clothes and being very, very, very gentle on the show with him. So I'm assuming that is even like more brownie points.
Probably. There is one woman in particular who was interviewed on Zach Bagans' Ghost Adventures Artifacts. Her name is Ronnie Randolph. She visited Robert the Doll a couple of years ago, and she took a photo of him without asking for permission. She did call him handsome.
But whoever she was with insulted him.
Yeah, a man behind her made a derogatory comment, and they edited it out, so I'm not going to mention it, but Robert didn't like it.
Yeah, and I think it was bleeped out.
For a reason. Yes. But she said right after the derogatory comment was made that she felt immediate impending doom. And impending doom, it happened. So 3 days after she met Robert, Ronnie got into a car accident. Later that day, she was in another car accident. And 3 days after that, Ronnie fell down the stairs in her houseboat and broke her back. So she really got some full force, like, bad juju from Robert.
Yeah, well, and she even on the show said that the partner or the companion that she was with has said that he's never experienced anything negative.
Right. So she thinks that she
received the full brunt force of it.
In that episode of Ghost Adventures Artifact, she actually comes back and meets Robert again, and she issued her formal apology, asking him for forgiveness and asking for her life back. I am hoping that she got her life back.
Yeah.
Hopefully, after issuing her apology to Robert, she
seemed very sincere about it.
As she should.
Yeah. I mean, if that happened to me, I would be begging on my knees, man.
Right. So that's really all I have about Robert the Doll.
But thank you, Robert.
Yes, thank you, Robert, for allowing us to talk about your story on our podcast. Yeah. We appreciate that.
So the next doll that we have to talk about, I want to put a little bit more of a disclaimer in here. This one's a little bit more, not sinister, but more impactful, I would say. Particularly to one woman I'll talk about. This is Peggy the Doll. And we don't really know much about the history of Peggy. She's a relatively normal looking doll with blonde hair and a white lace dress. She was also on an episode of Ghost Adventures Artifacts. She now resides at Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum, is on display. There's also a book that you can purchase. It's on Amazon. It's called Peggy the Doll, A Very Different Haunting. And that's written by the former caretaker of Peggy. We do know that she was made in the UK in the 1960s, and she's said to be the UK's most haunted doll. Kind of fitting how Robert is America's most haunted doll. She was given the name Peggy after a medium who had the opportunity to read her picked up on a spirit named Peggy. but we don't know exactly who or what is possessing or haunting Peggy the doll. This doll is particularly known for making people sick after looking at photos of her. So again, we're going to post a lot of disclaimer cover photos before the photo of Peggy, if you so choose to look at it. People experience fevers, nausea, migraines, weird feelings. There was even some claims of a woman who was talking about Peggy the doll to her friends, and light bulbs in her house kept blowing out. She became very popular in April of 2016 when, like I said, she was on Ghost Adventures Artifacts. She appeared with her face covered with a black sack, and her owner at the time, Jane Harris, who is an owner of it's called Haunted Dolls. Jane Harris owns a business in Shrewsbury, Shropshire in the UK. Don't know if I'm saying that right, but she specializes in the occult, haunted objects.
Yeah, she said for like 17 years.
Yeah, it at the time it was like 17 years.
Now it's like 20 years now.
Yeah. And she received Peggy after a woman, we'll call her Sherry, because we don't know her real name. I have no idea who owned her before. I couldn't find anything about who owned her before Jane. It said that she bought the doll at a sale. Peggy, don't know if it was brand new. Don't know if it was used. We have no idea. She bought it. The previous owner bought it herself. And as soon as she brought it home, she was experiencing some pretty bizarre things. Nightmares was the first most prominent thing. Mm-hmm. She had nightmares every single night. And she said that no matter what part of the house Peggy was in, she would always wake up at 3 a.m. with horrible nightmares. She also experienced a lot of migraines, nausea. She wasn't able to eat anything. She had terrible, really high fevers. And eventually she just gave up. She had a priest come and visit the doll twice to try to bless it. And no change in her symptoms at all. So she ended up going to the shop and giving it to Jane. So the main part of the side effects, I guess you would say, started when Jane Harris shared a photo of Peggy on the internet. She has Facebook pages, and like I said, she has that shop, social media. She's been specializing in this stuff for a while, so she has some, so she got a little bit of a social media presence. And she shared a photo of Peggy, not really thinking anything of it. And within 24 hours, she said that she received up to 100 messages and notifications that people were feeling sick after looking at this doll.
Through the computer.
People also claimed that while they were looking at this picture, their computer would freeze, turn off, and then when they would turn it back on, it would still be the picture of Peggy. Mm-hmm. Like it never closed out. It was just there. One of the most extreme cases of the effects of Peggy was a woman named Katrine Redick. Katrine also was featured on the Artifacts show, and she came to confront her fears with Peggy the doll. Now, a little bit of background information on Katrine that I found out after the fact. She is now 38. In 2015, she was 33, and there was an article in the Daily Mail about her and her collection of haunted dolls. She, at the time, had 12. I don't know if she has any more. She was a full-time mom of 2 at the time. And the article basically was talking about how she's spent thousands of dollars on these dolls, and she talks to them. And all these dolls have come forth and communicated with her, and she knows all their names, knows all their stories, she knows how they died. She will stay up at night and talk to these dolls. And one of the main feature points, main clickbait of this article was that she hires babysitters to come watch these dolls, because she claims that if she leaves them unwatched, untended to, they will cause complete mischief in her house. Now, fast forward to 2016, she's on this show, and she talks about a heart attack that she received at 33 years old, just minutes after seeing a video of Peggy the doll. Now, this is a confirmed heart attack. She was rushed to the hospital. The hospital confirmed it. Her GP confirmed it. And there was a lasting change in her heart as a result of a heart attack. So that is definitely confirmed. She did have a heart attack minutes after seeing Peggy's video. She is fully convinced that it came from Peggy. I'm not going to challenge that.
Right.
So she came on this show to confront her fears, apologize to Peggy for whatever she did, and they ended up holding a seance where they invited Patty Negri, I think her last name is. She's a huge medium. She's got a huge social media following. I don't really know much about her. I think I followed her Instagram at one point. But other than that, I don't really know much about her. And in this show, they do a seance. And right off the bat, the flames of the candles that they have set up start like bending from side to side. There's also a typewriter, like an old style typewriter behind Peggy in the video. And that starts going off. And you can hear it clicking in the background.
Yep.
Which was wild. Like, and it was clear too. Mm-hmm. Eventually, Zach Bagans does what he's known for and sends everybody out of the room and leaves Katrine in there by herself with Peggy. It's his favorite thing to do.
Poor Erin.
Yeah, poor Erin. So she's in there. She's not really talking to the doll. She's just kind of sitting there. And Patty, the medium, mentions that she can feel her choking up. And so she goes back in there, and then it looked like they started doing like a cord cutting ritual between Peggy and Katrine. I don't really know for sure because that's where that segment ended. They just like ended the segment without filming the rest of it. What's even more crazy is after we watched the show, I did a little bit of digging on Jane Harris's Facebook page. I like went back all the way to 2016, scrolled all the way down. And there's a post about Katrine just 9 days later after the episode had aired, and she was in the hospital with a stroke. And she messages Jane Harris with a picture of herself in the hospital and says, quote, "Hi, Jane. Did you disturb Peggy yesterday or today? I'm in hospital. Suspected stroke. Right hand down. No movement. We'll have MRI on Monday." End quote. And she posted this on the Facebook page asking for prayers and good vibes and speedy recovery. She also mentions in that Facebook post that she will be updated, and no other posts were ever made. I like continue to scroll to find out more, and Katrine was never mentioned again on that particular page. Can't say if she was ever mentioned on any other social media. There was a screenshot that Zach Bagans had taken of Jane's Twitter post, and he like retweeted it and said like sending prayers or something, but she was never mentioned again on that page.
I don't really believe in coincidences.
Me either. And the woman owns 12 other haunted dolls. And at first I was like, well, maybe it wasn't Peggy. Maybe it was one of the other ones.
Yeah,
but
it could be.
As it could be. But she had owned these dolls for quite some time.
Right.
Before meeting Peggy.
That's true.
So, coincidence? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. Maybe Peggy has some affliction with Katrine. I have no idea. Who's to say?
Right.
But it was very interesting that 8 or 9 days after that episode aired, she was in the hospital with stroke at 35 years old, or 34 at that point. She was 34.
Young. That's for a heart attack and a stroke.
So young. And she looks young.
Right.
Like she looked normal and healthy on the episode.
Right.
So because when we saw the episode and it didn't put her age, and we were both like,
crap, she's young.
Yeah, I'm like, we gotta look up this age because it's insane. But
so even now she's under 40.
She's 38 now.
Wild.
So wild. There's still a lot of questions about Peggy. We still don't know who or what is, again, residing in Peggy. Like I said, she is on display at Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. I don't know if he's got any rules about seeing her. I don't know if she's actually displayed in the Haunted Dolls room. I
know that she has her own room.
Does she? Okay.
She did as of the other day.
Okay.
So I assume she still does. She has her own room and quite a few warnings and disclaimers before you enter the room. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I mean, fair enough.
As they should.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what we have for these lovely 2 dolls. However, we do have our own experiences.
Yes.
We haven't visited these dolls. We haven't traveled. We would post about it if we did. Be extremely cool to go see.
Would love that. So sounds like a really good excuse to go to Florida
or Nevada. But you did your research before I did, because
yes,
I'm a slacker and did mine.
You always do yours before me, though.
I did mine approximately 4 hours ago before we started this recording.
Yeah, I did mine the other day, and to be fair, my apartment on its own is a
trip.
It's a trip. I don't even know how else to describe it. There is activity in my home quite frequently, Usually at night. And I mean, this was in the evening, but usually it's when like we're sleeping or like getting ready to go to bed. So grain of salt. But as I was researching Robert the Doll, I was hearing things in my apartment. And here's the thing. My apartment is so very small.
Yeah.
I can see my whole apartment from my bed. And I wish I was joking. So there's nothing hiding or peeking around corners. There's no chance that it's an upstairs neighbor making noise and I'm thinking it's in my... I definitely can tell.
I've ever heard your neighbors.
Occasionally the guy across the hall plays movies very loud with his surround sound, but there's a difference between that and what I heard.
Yeah.
So I heard the shower curtain moving.
Which, for context, we did a little bit of an impromptu session in your apartment one night.
Yes, maybe posting that.
Yeah, and we posted, I think, some screenshots on Instagram about it. We're probably going to end up doing an episode all about your apartment.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that I had heard a few times throughout that, like, 2-hour-long investigation. Yep. Every time my back was to the bathroom, I'd hear the rings of the shower curtain jiggle.
Right, and we always shut them so the water can drip off. I'm very particular about that. And so there's no chance that it was like all pushed to one side and it's just slowly like migrating back over or whatever because of the pressure of the shower curtain.
I don't think I've ever seen your shower curtain open unless I was showering in it.
No, I never do that. But the shower curtain rings, they're metal, and so is the curtain rod. And you could hear them scooting across the curtain rod. And then
it's a very distinct noise.
And I thought I heard something get set down on the counter in the bathroom. I also heard in the kitchen what sounded like, I don't know how to describe it. I'm going to remake it with this box next to me because that's
our business card box.
Our business card box, because this is the best thing that I can like think to describe it. It was like, but faint. It wasn't footsteps. At first I was like, that footsteps? But it wasn't footsteps, so I don't know what the hell it was. So then I saw a shadow coming out of the bathroom. And of course, the second I tried to record it, nothing happened.
Yeah, you were Snapchatting me the whole time. I was getting blown up with Snapchats.
But then I was sitting there and I'm like facing the apartment, my back's against the wall, and I see something out of the corner of my eye. And I look over at the bathroom because it's kind of in front of the bathroom door, and I don't really know how to explain it.
If you experience true migraines on a regular basis, you might know what you're talking about.
True that.
Because what you were explaining to me in the Snapchat you sent me sounds like when I'm starting to get a migraine, the edges of my vision will do this, but not the middle.
Right. Because I get those too, but this was not that.
Yeah.
110%. It was not that. It was like a figure, very, very faint and kind of like glitchy, but so faint that you could barely see it. Barely. Like I had to focus so hard. And the reason that I know it was there was because when I looked back later, I didn't see anything. It's so faint. I can try to find something to describe it, but
like fuzzy, glitchy,
like a fuzzy TV. But
if you turn the opacity way down.
Yeah, like way down. Like I could see through it.
Yeah.
It wasn't foggy or anything. It was just weird. Glitchy. Very weird. And I don't know necessarily that was Robert the Doll, but it did happen while I was doing research on Robert the Doll. So I don't know.
Have you experienced that before or since?
No. The glitchy, no. The noises, always.
Yeah, there's always noise in your apartment.
The glitchy figure, no.
Interesting.
And not sense either.
Very interesting. So I also had a little bit of weird experience researching these. And if you go on YouTube and you look up Robert the Doll or Peggy the Doll or Annabelle or any of these haunted dolls, usually the people talking about them will experience something. I know Haley Reese comes to mind. If you watch her videos, I love Haley Reese.
Same.
She, and this was like a really old video, a couple years ago, maybe. There would like she'd talk about how like some of the topics she'd research, if she researched them too long, she'd start to feel very sick and very drained and would like take a break. I've never experienced that before, ever. I can look up scary shit all day long. I can watch scary movies. I can read about whatever. I could do paranormal investigations and I'm just fine. Paranormal investigations get me a little bit scared. The Connect freaks me out. But I don't feel sick. Well, today, folks, I had just gotten out of one of my music classes. Terrible class. And I was sitting in the library doing my research last minute because that's who I am as a person. And I guess it wasn't the library. There's like, at my campus, there is the library building. And then there's a big, like, almost like a lunchroom. There's a bunch of vending machines, like a sitting area with tables. Everybody eats their lunch there usually. I had walked all over campus to get a cup of coffee because the coffee vending machine in the library den thing wasn't working.
Never.
To my demise. So I had just got back with my coffee, feeling good, put my headphones in. I was jamming to some Slipknot, doing my haunted doll research. And I had the hardest time finding information. I kept getting articles about people's experiences, but never the history of her, who she was, where she came from, who owned her. Like, I need to know at least basic history of this doll. And all of a sudden, I get stupid nauseous. And I don't really get nauseous that often. Like, that doesn't happen to me unless I have extreme bouts of anxiety. And my anxiety is always at a good 5 out of 10 scale. I don't get nausea until I'm at an 8.
Right.
So I know it wasn't that. And I hadn't realized, and I hadn't read at this point, because I had just started my research, that this is a side effect or a negative connotation of Peggy the Doll, was people usually get extremely nauseous. And there was later on, a few minutes later, when I had like gotten into the research, I had read an article about people who've actually had to like leave and vomit because they were so nauseous. And I was sitting by like an outside door, because at the back of this little den area, there's like a sitting area outside. And I was sitting next to this door, and I like kept looking at the door like, am I gonna have to make a run for it? Like, am I gonna have to go throw up outside?
That's when you texted me too.
Yeah, I did text you. I Snapchatted you about it too, and I was like, thankfully there was no one else in the little area, because I was talking about like, I'm so nauseous about this, looking at this doll. But as soon as I packed everything up and got into my car, I was totally fine. I went and had lunch, didn't throw it up. I was totally fine. Like, and I just kind of, I didn't brush it off, but I'm just like, okay, this is a side effect of what I'm doing. I understand the consequences. I respect Peggy the Doll and Robert the Doll with every fiber of my being. And I was fine after that. Even like recording and doing a little bit more research and watching that episode and stuff, I've been fine. I don't know if it was just my like nerves getting to me, or like maybe I had read that in the past and didn't remember and it was like psychosomatic, whatever.
Sure.
But I just wanted to throw that in there. That's like, I did experience that, whether psychosomatic or not.
It happened.
You're right. So my little segue here is, if any of you are listening to this and you're feeling very weird, or are experiencing something weird, or see something weird, or feel something weird after looking at these pictures, please let us know. I am so interested to see if this, how many people this affects.
We're not really trying to have a social experiment to see how many people's lives get ruined from this episode. That's not what we're hoping for.
The goal is to educate you on these haunted objects, because haunted objects exist. It's a thing that happens, and I am so intrigued by it.
Yeah.
A little bit scared, but super intrigued by it. So I just want to know if you guys feel that too.
Yeah.
Because if all these other people are saying that, yeah, I feel nauseous when I look at this picture or whatever, I don't know, man. I'm just interested in it.
Before we close out the show, I think it's a show.
Yeah, it's a show.
Before we close out the show, I want to once again thank Robert and Peggy
so much
for allowing us to talk about them during our recording today. I also would like to formally say goodbye.
Goodbye, Robert. Goodbye, Peggy.
If any of you have experienced anything during our podcast today, or have met Robert or Peggy, we want to know about it.
Or do you have any haunted objects or cursed objects?
Yep.
Let us know.
Any that you want us to research, look into.
Yeah.
We're down for it. You can reach out to us on any of our social medias. We're on Instagram at Sunday Night Spookies, on Twitter at Sunday Spookies, and on Facebook at the Sunday Night Spookies podcast.
We also have a few links in our description box. One of the links is for Buzzsprout, the website that we use to host our podcast. It's an amazing website. It keeps track of all of our stats, any monetization we may get, keeps track of all of our episodes, and it breaks down our stats per episode, per week, per month. It's an awesome website to host a podcast. So if any of you are in the market to start a podcast, we highly recommend Buzzsprout. If you use our link, we do get a small kickback from it. It is an affiliate link, as well as our Instacart link. I hate getting groceries. I'm sure I'm not the only one that hates going to the store and getting groceries, especially in a pandemic. For me, who has crippling amounts of anxiety, going grocery shopping in a pandemic is not good. So I get my groceries delivered almost every week. I love Instacart. If you use our link in our description box, you will get free delivery on orders over $35, and you can get your groceries in as little as an hour. It's an awesome, awesome service. I love it so much. There's also a few links to our Amazon storefront where you can purchase the spirit box we use and the EMF detector we use. We love them, tried and true. They've never failed us. Those are also affiliate links, so we will get a small kickback. We just appreciate anybody listening to the show. If you're feeling particularly gracious on this day or whenever you're listening to this, we have a support the show link at the very bottom of the show notes. That will just take you to our PayPal if you feel like donating to our cause here. Anything that we receive goes right back into recording equipment, website, hosting, paranormal investigations. It costs a lot of money to travel. We promise all of it goes right back into content for you guys, and we just appreciate everything you guys do for us.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Night Spookies.
Join us on Halloween night for our Halloween live stream.
Woo!
It's going to be at the National House Inn. We're going to go live for the first part of our nightly investigation. You guys will get to tune in on Facebook. We'll be live on Facebook. You get to ask some questions, be part of the investigation, witness any spooky evidence that happens. So don't miss it. It's going to be so cool.
See you then. New episodes are released every Sunday evening. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, stay spooky. No. Many people
sounded like the pack.
Thank you. I'm working on it. It's fine.